Ever met someone whose resume reads like an international business thriller? From launching brands across post-Iron Curtain Europe to mentoring Gen Z founders in the heart of Prague, to rebuilding major companies and still having time to guide student entrepreneurs. Our guest today has done it all with style. Welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, a private market intelligence platform that's been tracking the global startup ecosystem for 12 years. Through our university partnership, we collaborate with institutions driving innovation and entrepreneurship, and this series highlights the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host for today, and joining us is Heinrich Homola, business lecturer at Anglo American University, Prague. He's also a seasoned international executive, startup mentor, and the quiet force behind some of the most exciting student ventures in the region. Henrik, thank you for being here. Let's dive in.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this wonderful introduction. I couldn't have said it better in my own words.
You're welcome. So you've gone from PNG in post-Iron Curtain Prague to mentoring student startups at
Yes,
AAU. Did you plan for a career that looked like a pan-European Netflix series?
I'm not a good planner when it comes to careers or even to my own career. None of my career steps were really planned. I'm sorry that I have to disappoint now some of the listeners and viewers. I don't believe in long-term planning. All the steps which took me through the last 25 or 30 years of my career, they happened, inshallah, or whatever way you may want to say it. So yes, I started with Procter & Gamble in Germany. Actually, I'm raised in Germany. I'm born in Prague, but my parents emigrated when I was a little boy, so I was raised in Germany, and German is my first language, and my mind is rather German than Eastern European. I came to back then it was still called Czechoslovakia in the early 90s, so right after the Iron Curtain came down, and worked with Procter for 5 years and some other companies in Prague. Then I left for the Netherlands, then back for Germany, and responsible for German-speaking Europe, then Poland, then Germany, and for the last 20 years, Czech Republic has me back.
Amazing. And somewhere, yes, sorry.
Coming to the last point, because you asked about teaching, when I came as a CEO of a company here in Prague, I back then started to teach here and there already, and I became quite active with an NGO which brought business and economic things to high schools. So I also had a lot of contact with high school students. And when I was sitting in my CEO office, I figured out, hey, if the market share of my products climbs or drops by half percentage point in the last quarter, it doesn't give me the kicks I would expect anymore. And the teaching does give me the energy and the kicks. So this is when I actually then, a few years later, ended my wonderful executive career. And first took a new qualification as a coach, as a systemic coach, as a systemic team coach, as an NLP practitioner, master practitioner, worked some interim management projects, and the last 3 or 4 years, basically 80% of my time is devoted into teaching. Currently, I'm teaching at 6 different business universities, all of them international, this is what, I can't remember when it's the last time I worked so much like in the last 3 years.
Right, amazing. But when we are speaking about the classroom itself, right? So your entrepreneurship in practice course at
Yes.
AAU lets the students launch their own ideas instead of just analyzing the case studies, right? So what's
Exactly.
one shift you have seen in students once they realize they are building something real, not theoretical?
The key shift is that they work on something what they come up with themselves. Analyzing a case, and in fact, I very much believe into the case study teaching method. Having said that, case studies is probably one of the most misunderstood or misinterpreted words in academia business teaching, but the American way to teach case studies, I very much believe in that, and it's great and it's interactive and everything. But if the students have to work on a company and for a company which they build themselves, it's completely changing their mindset and their ways of working, and it brings them in a much clearer way the key things what entrepreneurs these days have to understand, which is, for example, who is really your target group? And not in terms of demographics, that's, households between 25 and 40 or something, but who are those people? How do they dress? What music do they listen to? What do they eat? How do they spend their leisure time? Really immerse into your target group. And that leads, or that is combined with the ideation phase of the projects, of the companies which they have, because I try to make them understand, to believe that it's not about an idea generation, but it's about, startup is not about idea generation, but it's about solution generation, because they have to become solution bringers. And if you want to become a solution bringer, you need to understand for whom the solution is relevant. And ideally, you're actually part of that group, of that target group, because then from the inside, you understand it even better. And once the students start to realize that they are members of so many different groups, and each one of them has their problems, whether it's a group of seniors because they have grandparents who have this or that trouble, or because it's peers, or because it's whatever, sports clubs or whatever, then they really start getting into it. And this is actually what builds also their, or there's a chance that commitment gets built and that they stay with the thing for 1 semester or 2 semesters, because EIP, Entrepreneurship in Practice, is a 2-semester program, that they stay with it for basically a year.
Interesting. You're known for letting students fail fast, right? What's your favorite failure story that turned into a aha moment?
Thank you for using the word aha moment. I believe so much in aha moments. I believe that every teacher, regardless what his title is, professor or teacher in a kindergarten, his or her job is to create aha moments, because only when there is an aha moment, oop, I didn't know that, that surprised me, wow, then people start to learn. Funny enough, by the way, I always make a little survey amongst my students to think back, when are the moments when they learned actually most in their life so far? And I don't want to hear the answers. I just ask them, think back, think of those moments. And they think about it. They don't have to say them loud. It's private for them. And then I ask them, were those moments where you get some reward, or where something went south? And of course, it's the moments where something didn't work out as planned, where it was a failure. And then I say, okay, so we learn from failures better than from rewards. They go, yes. And then I go, okay, but we all went to school and we got punished for failures, and we were supposed to do our best for rewards. Isn't that paradoxon? And they go, oh. So they then understand that actually I'm telling them, hey, I want you to do as many mistakes as possible. I want you to fail, so to speak, because there is a safety net for them. And this is where the learning happens then.
Interesting.
Example, not really a project, because the projects which they started, at least in the last 3 years, and I'm super proud of all my students in the last 3 years, because the last 3 years, my student companies have won a national competition and went to represent the Czech Republic in the European final, organized by the International Junior Achievement Organization, Generation E like entrepreneurship organization in Europe and worldwide. And we made it 3 times in a row. And last time, which is just 2 months ago in Athens at the European finals, my students even got one of the European prizes for AI innovation. But on the way to there, there were many mistakes. That the program didn't work, that they started to fight amongst each other. They didn't talk to each other for 2 weeks. It never goes as planned, which is not only normal for every entrepreneur, but which is actually one of the biggest lessons which I believe can be learned when you work with young people in a startup. That it depends on them how to get back on track. And that's not about the idea, it's about themselves.
Very true. And personally, I'm feeling that I'm not interviewing you. I'm in your class now.
Oh my God, I'm not lecturing too much.
No, not at all. So, by the way, for our viewers, if you are enjoying this conversation so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Tracxn YouTube channel. We have got more episodes lined up with amazing academics across global universities, and you won't want to miss them. All right, so let's zoom out for a second. Have you ever seen a pitch that sounded totally off the wall at first and then somehow worked? You're thinking, no way. I mean, same the aha moment, but they surprised you.
A pitch which surprised me in a positive way was actually the last student company called Cultivate, now written C-O-O-L, like cool, and cultivate, like to cultivate something. And the basic idea is to use drones to help agriculture, to monitor fields, to collect data, and to provide the farmers with better data for fertilizing, for watering their fields, the crop and everything. So the farmers have data for taking care of managing their fields and the crop in a better way. And as part of this whole competition which the students enter with that company is they have to do a movie about it. And in course, we had a session how to do clips and how to do 30-second or 60-second movies. And I mean, I've done advertising for 25 years in my life, so I know a little bit about how to do that. And they came up with a 60-second clip which really blew my socks off in terms of cuts, in terms of drama, in terms of telling the story of a farmer and his son. The farmer being the traditional guy who, is devastated. Oh my God, another horrible year. What shall I do? I don't know what to do anymore. And the son, obviously, you're supposed to follow him as a farmer, and it's also about transferring it to the next generation. And the son being modern and showing the father that there is something like drone and data and that could help. And of course the father is skeptical. No, I don't want computers on my field. And the son, hey, let's give it a try. And he shows him the drone and everything. And it's not like at the end both of them hug and walk off into the sunset, almost. But the music which they found under that thing, and those are, kids who are 21, 22, 23 years old, was Father and Son by Cat Stevens, which I know from my youth from the late 70s. And I got goosebumps when I still see it and I thought, wow, what a clip. That really blew my socks off. That sold the whole thing.
Interesting. I think I will definitely watch it after this. Right.
You will love it. You will simply love it.
All right. So when it comes to these surprises, right, probably they also need space to happen. Uh, how do you strike that balance between structure and letting students just run their own ideas? Are you more a game plan guy or just jazz improvement?
Um, I'm not their prof. I'm not their teacher. I'm their mentor. I'm there to be called upon when they need advice, and I should keep my mouth shut when they don't need it, which is actually the hardest part for me. By far the hardest part for me. Because obviously I would have zillions ideas any 5 minutes they are doing something, but I'm supposed to keep my mouth shut. Your question is how to strike that balance. Let me expand the question a little bit to what is actually the challenge for us teachers these days when working with students, Gen Z, so to speak. Now, zillions of articles have been written about Gen Z. I don't want to add another 5 minutes to that, but I fundamentally, ultimately believe that it's all about flexibility on our side as teachers. It's about being flexible in terms of not fighting what they are coming with, not fighting how they are behaving, not fighting their language, not fighting their patterns, but to take it and to work with it, to use the energy with which it comes and to use it for making them better. And let me be very specific on that. And for this interview, I looked up an article which was written by a very good friend of mine. His name is Nathaniel Berkey. How to coach Gen Z startups without losing your mind, which is a great title. And his first sentence is, advising Gen Z founders is like running a board meeting on TikTok speed. And he then goes, they have the TLDR gene. Yeah. TLDR, what does TLDR mean? Too long, don't read. I love that. It's about translating them or helping them to translate their thoughts into the language of their investors, not erasing their thoughts. Now, I'm teaching all my classes, regardless whether it's entrepreneurship or strategy or communication skills or marketing, whatever, that the worm has to be liked by the fish and not the fisherman. So the Gen Z founders are the worm and the language and their idea and their pitch is the worm. And the fishes are those investors who could be their fathers, sometimes their grandfathers, right? So they will not learn Gen Z language, but the Gen Z kids have to adapt. Now, they need to understand that they need to adapt, and sometimes they need a translation sheet. Now, to give them the translation sheet as a Word document would not work. But if you give them a translation sheet which is visual, if you give them a translation sheet which looks like what they are reading, then it starts to make sense that the word confirmed means you bet, that the word priorinary or plurality is high key, and that overconfident is delulu, which, by the way, has become the word of the year or is supposed to become the word of the year in Germany for the Gen Z people. Reality check would be touch grass. So that's fine. If they understand that whatever they are thinking about has to be understood by the investors, because and that's the other thing they need to understand. And there is a wonderful video which I saw 2 days ago by Sam Altman, the founder of ChatGPT. How to tell whether to invest into a company, how to tell within the first 10 minutes. And he goes, it's about the person. Within 10 minutes, and each one of us of our generation knows that within an interview, in a job interview, we can tell in the first seconds or minutes whether somebody is interesting enough to spend another half an hour talking, or whether we say, well, thank you very much, after polite chit-chat after 15 minutes. And what Altman is saying, it's about take intelligence for granted, or intelligence, of course, has to be there, but it's about their determination, their persistence, and their ability to stick with it even if it doesn't work first time. This is what he's looking for, and this is what you usually can tell after the first 10 minutes. The persistence in there. And that is something which I believe in academia we are also basically not teaching, but it's part of business, because business is selling. And selling is selling yourself. It's not about a genius idea. Innovation itself is not sustainable. It's about the person bringing it to life and developing with it and making sure that it's going to be successful. Now, how do I sell myself as a person like that? That is something we pay so little attention to. And I've seen it in so many Shark Tanks, which we are doing in class, that they are not able to sell themselves. I see it in my presentation skill courses. And we all are witnessing it, even in those TV Shark Tanks things where the entrepreneurs are coached, and they still get sometimes, ripped apart from the sharks because they don't believe in the person.
Very true, and very interesting that you took so many examples. Many tackled real, social or environmental challenges, right? So, do you see purpose-driven entrepreneurship as a passing trend, or something that's genuinely reshaping how this generation builds?
As I said, innovation by itself is not sustainable. It's about, you use the word purpose-driven, I call it real-world solutions. And that doesn't come out of research. People don't know what they want. This is still true. So they will not tell you in any focus group, hey, why don't you make this and this for me? It doesn't work this way. Which is why it's so important to immerse into the target group and to understand, to watch them, what is, excuse my French, pissing them off. Because that word which I just used is actually an emotion. And emotions sell. You cannot sell anything without emotions. And you need to create emotions which are answers to the question which goes, once you have the solution, what else have you got? Oh, then I'm going to be happy. Yeah, but what does it mean? Do you get a bowl growing out of here of happiness, or what did you get once the solution, once it's fixed? What does that bring to you? This is emotional. And this is something you need to understand, and that is purpose-driven. Guy Kawasaki says it super nicely in his wonderful book about starting up. He says all those vision and mission statements, lots of energy goes there, and they are designed by committee, and then they are framed and they are hanging at reception. And nobody, if you walk through the company and ask the people at their desk, hey, what's the vision, mission, nobody can repeat them. But it's purpose. Now, how do you come up with your purpose as an entrepreneur? And Kawasaki's suggestion for the question is, even if you fail, even if you hit the tree tomorrow, what is it which will still persist, which will be left from your failure? That's the purpose. That's why you have done it. That's why you have worked your butt off. That's why you work 24/7. And without clarifying that for yourself first, you will not have, and now the circle is closing, you will not have the determination and the persistence to stay with it and to work with it. And making them understand that, that's the goal. Now, do they all get it? By God, no. if I have a class of 15 or 20 students, I'm lucky 5 or 6 get it. If I have bad luck, 2 or 3 get it. But for them, it's worth it.
Amazing. So talking about trends and advice, right? You have had a front row seat to how entrepreneurship looks across the different regions. What's one cultural difference in how people approach starting up that surprised you?
As much as I believe in young people learning about cultural intelligence, and as much as I love to have it included in my courses, because as I was saying, I have only international classes, and some of my classes are, for example, Americans only, who come to Europe for 1 semester. And it's not about strategic management, it's about cultural differences and therefore cultural intelligence. And as much as I believe in they have to become aware of that, which by the way means you first need to become aware of your own culture. You cannot understand cultural differences if you don't understand your own culture. When it comes to entrepreneurship though, once you have understood that the worm has to be liked by the fish and not the fisherman, it becomes natural and logical that you try to find out about cultural differences, and whether the cultural differences are in the way you dress up for a meeting, or if it's about whether you're punctual or not, or if it's about your writing style, or if it's about how factual you have to be and how many numbers you need to quote instead of having nice sauce, how some people call it, around it. That's then what they have to find out. Ultimately, what I've come across to see, whether it's Western Europe, whether it's Eastern Europe, whether it's the North American culture, or whether it's the Middle East culture actually, or even the Asian one, it's always about buying the entrepreneur primarily, not so much the idea. The best idea will not work if it's not the right person behind it, and it's the entrepreneur who is a brand. So now we come into how do you build a brand which works across cultures, and there are zillions of examples on that, and all of them have the common denominator that you have to speak the local language, so to speak. So McDonald's or Coca-Cola are speaking the local language in whatever they are doing. I don't mean obviously the words, but the way they communicate. And that's true for every entrepreneur as well. It's about brand building of the entrepreneur.
Interesting. So looking ahead, are there any startup or any entrepreneurial trends you think students should be paying attention to?
With AI doing so much for us these days, and none of us knows what AI will be able to do in even half a year from now, not to speak of 1 or 2 years from now. AI is a tool. AI will not replace that me as an entrepreneur have to understand the target group. Let me translate your question, or let me reword your question in how do we recognize what will be, or what is flavor of the day, and what is not old school but always has been valid, is valid today, and will be valid tomorrow. Now, understanding target group is not old school but has been valid, is valid, and will be valid. Good old AIDA, attention, interest, desire, reaction, has been valid 2,000 years ago and will be valid in 2,000 years as long as we are humans. You can't generate interest if you don't generate attention. Now the tools how to generate attention, they are zillions, and that is changing. The attention of your target group, generating attention of your target group, that will change tremendously because the target group behavior patterns, communication patterns, viewing patterns, listening patterns are changing. That doesn't mean that the necessity of understanding the target group is changing. It's just the tools. Can AI help? Of course it can. Can AI replace? Not really, because you still have to think. And in fact, with the AI becoming more, and I'm using AI basically in every class of my courses because I very, very much believe into it. And I have courses which are focused on AI in communication and not social media, where I'm trying to get my students aware of how do you distinguish between fake news and real stuff? What is actually propaganda and how is propaganda working? In some of my exams, I'm grading prompts, not answers. I'm giving them questions which are AI generated. I'm giving them the answers to those questions which are AI generated. And I want them to come up with prompts which will generate better answers. And I grade the prompts. That ability to think, everybody says, critical thinking, that's the name of the game. Yeah, well, of course it is. Critical thinking requires thinking. I hope this is not a too much philosophical answer to your question, but this is what I'm absolutely convinced what it comes down to. And once students understand that they get challenged in every of my classes to think, and the thinking comes with them discussing, which is, by the way, hitting another paradigm of these days. Why should people come to a brick and mortar building called school these days, right? It's useless. I mean, with Queen Victoria, it made sense because there was a library and there were smart people called professors. Today, they can learn not only since open online courses, but they can learn whenever they want, listen to whomever they want on YouTube or TED Talk. Why should they come to a stone building called university? Well, because they meet in class. Now, if what in class is happening is only the professor talking, then it's a waste of time. But if it's an exchange, if it's challenge, if it's fight in the good sense of way and learning from each other and building something, then it starts to make sense.
Amazing. Very insightful. And in all of this, where do you see university fitting in? Are they becoming more like incubators, launchpads, or still figuring out how to keep up with how fast students move?
I think the biggest challenge for universities, and I'm talking only business, okay? Because natural sciences, completely different ballgame. Medicine, different ballgame. Law, different ballgame. And I don't know anything about that, so I can only speak of business universities. The challenge is, in my opinion, how to get across those things in business, in economics, which you simply need and will always need. You cannot run a company if you have no clue about accounting. I'm sorry. And teaching accounting in a fun way so that the kids like it, the students love it. They don't have to love it. The challenge for every professor teaching accounting is not making his students to love accounting. It's taking away their fear of numbers. Once they lost their fear of numbers, they actually open up and find out how the numbers are working, and then that it's necessary to be able to read at least some basics about a balance sheet. To understand how inflation works, to understand that there is a match between a demand and supply curve and microeconomics. That is still necessary. that will not go away. And that can't be replaced by AI because you need to understand it. And the challenge for unis, and uni is an institution, the challenge for the professors, for the teachers, is how to get that across in a way, in a language, how to adapt to the students in such a way that they still get it. And don't expect them to go, oh, gee, I love it. I know I need it. No, it will not happen. That will come maybe 10 years later. They say, oh, finally I understand why back 10 years ago I needed to learn that. Keep in mind that if you stand in front of a class today, at least half of the class in 5 to 10 years will do something, will work in something which hasn't been invented yet. And now, don't try to think about what it's going to be because it hasn't been invented yet. Why is that true? Well, because half of those people who are 35 today are doing things, or at least 1/3 of them are doing things which didn't exist 10 years ago. Now, how do you want to use your time at uni to prepare for a life doing something which hasn't been invented yet? Learning accounting and reading balance sheets and microeconomics? But if you want to stay in business, I'm afraid the answer is still yes. But that's not all. And that's the point. Unis in the past were theory only. And maybe the last year of your master's were. Now, this comes at a much, much earlier stage. And it has to be made, again, the worm is to be liked by the fish and not the fisherman. And it's about, where are my funny pictures here? It's about teaching balance sheets maybe in such a way. Now, I know that some of the viewers will say, come on, give me a break. Should I learn that? Well, you have different fish.
Right. Super, very interesting. Like I know you would have told this many a times, and you would have mentioned this during our interview today also. When a student says, "I've got this idea, but I'm scared it's not good enough," what's your go-to advice?
Sorry, I'm not sure I got the question. Students are afraid that their output is not good enough?
Yes. So a student, I mean, he has got an idea, but he's scared it is not good enough.
You mean a business idea?
Yes.
Two guys come into my mind who are dealing with that question and who I use now as guiding my answer. One of them is Simon Sinek, and the other one is hang on, a really short seconds. The other one is I have it in a second. Hang on. Vin Jiang. He is a presentation and speaking coach on YouTube. Vin is spelled V-I-N-H. Second name G-I-A-N-G. Vin Jiang. How to deal with if you're not sure whether you're good enough. Because it's not about the idea, is my idea good enough? A strong person believing in itself will never say, I'm the king of the world, but is my idea good enough? That doesn't happen. Okay? This is my idea good enough is actually, am I good enough? Will somebody listen to me? So it's a deeper fear which is in there, which is why it is serious. And an advice like, oh, just ask a couple of friends who will be nice to you will not make it. but it's working on much more on the person, to make the person understand that an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily have to be an extrovert and being like, I'm the one who convinces the world. Making such a person understand that everybody of us, regardless how we are contributors to something. We are worth something. We are worth for somebody because we can generate additional value, or maybe a niche only, but for that niche, it's going to be exactly the right thing. So business classes are not psychology therapy classes. So it's I would not now do that in a student with a class and 14 others watching, of course not. But at least having that understanding and helping such a person understand that it's about understanding that they have a value for others, definitely, that they are good enough for somebody, and the only trick is to understand and to believe that there are persons out there who will say, hey, you are great. That's change of mind, because in NLP I learned how often we are hampering ourselves with what is called self-limiting belief. And I'm not good enough is a typical self-limiting belief. By the way, if you're able to write down your idea, and if you are able to write down how it will solve something for somebody, who that somebody is, and what else that somebody gets once the solution is there, and if that person, if that self-doubt person is able to write that down, because writing clarifies thinking. You cannot write down something what you really didn't think through. Then that person will actually begin to understand that he's good enough at least to write it down. And whatever I can write down that it will happen is the first little step on a long road.
Very inspiring. I'll take this personally also. I'll keep in mind whatever you have told with respect to this. This applies not only for the entrepreneurs or the student entrepreneurs, it applies for everybody. And finally, for anyone who wants to follow your work or keep tabs on your students' next big wins, where should they go?
I'm not good in promoting myself as a brand. It is this usual thing that which exists in so many languages. In Czechia, we say in Czech, under the light, under the lamp, there is the biggest shadow. In Germany, you say the shoemaker has the worst shoes, and so on and so forth. So that goes promoting myself as a brand. I do have a LinkedIn profile where I post about, on two hands I can count it how often I post. But if anybody of the viewers should have a question or should want to discuss something, contact me on LinkedIn and take it from there. Great.
So the link for his LinkedIn will be available on the comment section. Just go and check it out. Great. That's the wrap for this episode. From post-Iron Curtain boardrooms to startup classrooms in Prague, Heinrich showed us how experience, empathy, and a little chaos can shape the next generation of founders. A huge thanks to you, Heinrich, for being part of this episode. Thank you very much.
I thank you for the room and for the place. Thank you very much.
Great.